Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to share with you a story that carries a powerful message, one that can change the way you think about your future, your dreams, and even your everyday life. It's a story about a man who seemed to have nothing, a man everyone ignored, a man people walked past without even a second look. But what happened with him will remind you that your mind is the strongest force you have, and that you can become what you think today. So, imagine a dusty street in a busy city, where cars honk constantly, people rush to their work, and shopkeepers shout to attract customers. Among all this noise and movement, there was a man sitting on the side of the road. His clothes were old and torn, his hair messy, and in front of him lay a small metal bowl with just a few coins. People knew him as the beggar who had been sitting there for years. Some felt pity, some didn't care, and some assumed he would always remain the same. But no one ever wondered what was going on in his mind. Every morning, before people filled the streets, he would open his eyes slowly, look at the sky, and whisper, "Maybe today something will change." It was a fragile hope, but it lived inside him. He remembered a time when he wasn't like this, when he had dreams, when he had a small job, when he wanted to study, when he wanted to become something. But life had been harsh, and slowly he had lost everything. Yet, even in the middle of all this, there was one thing he still had, his thoughts. One day, a wise old man happened to pass by. He was dressed simply but carried an aura of calmness. He stopped in front of the beggar and observed him for a moment. The beggar looked up in confusion. People rarely stopped, and if they did, it was only to drop a coin. But this man wasn't reaching for his pocket. Instead, he asked, "What are you thinking right now?" The beggar blinked. What do you mean?" he asked. "I mean," the old man said gently, "what thoughts fill your mind every day?" The beggar laughed weakly. "What else would a man like me think? I think about food, about surviving, about how unlucky my life is. That's it." The old man nodded as if he already knew the answer. Then he said something that struck the beggar deeply, "You can become what you think today." The beggar frowned. "How can someone like me become anything? My life is already finished." "No," the old man replied. "Your life is not finished. Your thinking is. You're not trapped by the world, you are trapped by your own thoughts." Those words hit the beggar like a wave. He had heard motivational quotes before. He had heard people say, "Think positive" or "Believe in yourself," but it never meant anything to him. But the way the old man said it, with so much calmness and certainty, made him wonder if there was truth behind it. "What should I think then?" the beggar asked quietly. "Think of what you want to become," the old man said. "Not what you are right now. Thoughts are seeds. If you plant the seed of success, if you water it with belief and action, it will grow. If you keep planting seeds of misery, you will continue to harvest misery. Start small. Start with one thought, "I can change." Say it every day until your mind believes it." The beggar listened carefully. Something inside him shifted. Maybe hope, maybe belief, or maybe the simple idea that he still had the power to choose what he thought. Before leaving, the old man placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "Your life is waiting for the moment you decide to think differently." And then he walked away. That night, the beggar couldn't sleep. The old man's words kept repeating in his mind. "You can become what you think today." He whispered it to himself again and again. The next morning, instead of waking up with the usual heaviness in his heart, he tried something new. He closed his eyes and said, "I can change my life. I am capable. I am not helpless." It felt strange, almost silly, but he kept repeating it. Day after day, he continued this small practice. And slowly, his behavior changed. Instead of sitting with his head down, he sat up straight. Instead of waiting hopelessly, he looked around with curiosity. Instead of thinking of himself as worthless, he began imagining the person he could become. His clothes were still old, his bowl still had few coins, but inside him, a seed had been planted. One morning, a shop owner from the same street noticed him sitting differently. Something about the beggar's posture, his eyes, his calmness, it felt unusual. The shop owner approached him and said, "You look different these days. What happened?" The beggar smiled shyly. "I'm trying to change my life." The shop owner was surprised. He had never heard the beggar speak like this before. So he said, "If you want to change, why don't you start by helping me in my shop? It's small work, but it's better than sitting here." The beggar's eyes widened. Chance had knocked on his door, and this time he was ready. He nodded eagerly. That was the beginning. At first, the work was simple, sweeping the floor, arranging items, running small errands. But he worked with so much dedication that within a month, the shop owner trusted him with more responsibilities. The beggar started saving whatever he earned. And every day before leaving for work, he repeated the same thought, "I can become what I think today." Months passed. He bought new clothes, cleaned himself up, and even moved into a tiny rented room. The people who used to look down on him started greeting him with respect. Some were shocked when they learned he was the same man who once sat on the sidewalk with a metal bowl. Eventually, he saved enough to start a small business of his own, repairing simple household items. It wasn't huge, it wasn't glamorous, but it was his. And it grew because he gave it everything he had. Over the years, he expanded slowly. Hired workers, and opened a bigger shop. The same busy street where he once begged was now the street where he owned a business. One evening, as he stood outside his shop watching the sunset, he saw a young boy sitting at the corner of the road, looking defeated. Something pulled at his heart. He walked toward the boy and sat beside him. "What are you thinking right now?" he asked gently, repeating the old man's question. The boy looked confused. "I don't know, nothing good." The man smiled. "Let me tell you something someone once told me, you can become what you think today." He then shared his story, not to show off, but to remind the boy that thoughts are powerful. That minds shape futures. That a single change in thinking can start a chain reaction. And as he spoke, he realized something profound. He had not only changed his life, but he had become the same kind of person who once changed his. Your thoughts are not just ideas floating inside your head. They are the blueprint of your future, the fuel of your actions, and the foundation of your habits. When you think small, you live small. When you think you are nothing, your life becomes nothing. But the moment you begin to think differently, the moment you tell yourself, "I can grow, I can improve, I can rise," your life begins to shift. This story is a reminder that you don't need a perfect start, a rich background, or someone to rescue you. What you need first is a decision inside your mind. You don't become successful by accident, you become successful by thought, belief, and consistent action. And all of that begins today, not tomorrow, not next month, not someday, today. So, if you're watching this and you feel stuck, lost, or unsure, start with one thought: I can change my life. Say it even if it feels strange. Say it even if you don't fully believe it. Because your mind listens. And once your mind changes, your world will follow. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe if this story inspired you. And remember, you can become what you think today.